There was once a kingdom greater than Gondor, greater than any realm of men that has ever stood beneath these stars. A civilization so mighty, so radiant, that even Sauron, the Lord of Darkness, the architect of ruin, the shadow behind all shadows, feared it, and in a single night, it vanished beneath the sea. But I ask you this, why would the gods themselves destroy the greatest kingdom Middle-earth had ever known? That is the story I carry for you today, the story of Númenor, the Atlantis of Middle-earth. Close your eyes and imagine the age before ages. The world is young, the stars are clean, the air carries the scent of cedar smoke and salt, and something older still, the fragrance of a world that has not yet been broken. The great war against Morgoth, the first Dark Lord, the corrupted god who poisoned the very earth with his malice, that war is over. The Valar, the angelic powers who shaped the world, have cast Morgoth into the void beyond the stars, and now they turn to men, specifically to the Edain, the noble houses of men who stood beside the elves, when all others fled, who bled and burned and endured, who chose the light when darkness was winning. They deserved a reward worthy of eternity. And so the Valar raised a gift from the sea itself, an island, not a small thing, covered in grass and grey stone, a continent of an island, a kingdom-shaped gift, rising from the middle of the great ocean, halfway between the mortal lands of Middle-earth and the immortal shores of the blessed realm, as if the gods wished to say, you may not cross into paradise, but you may stand close enough to smell its wind. They called it Númenor, the Westerness, the land of gift, and at its heart rose Meneltarma, the pillar of heaven, a mountain so tall its peak pierced the cloud, and at its summit no roof was needed, for the sky itself became the temple. The Númenorians built harbours that could shelter 1,000 ships, golden domes that caught the last light of evening, libraries carved into cliff sides of white stone, gardens where the silver trees of elvish memory grew in the warm western wind. They were given lives thrice the length of ordinary men. They were given wisdom. They were given kinship with the immortal elves, who sailed to them across the sea, bearing gifts of knowledge and craft and song. This was humanity at its absolute peak, and for long ages, long, bright, unhurried ages, it was enough. But something grows in the heart of every great civilization. At first, it is only a whisper, barely a thought. A man stands on the western shore at twilight, watching the sun descend toward the horizon, toward the hidden shore of the blessed realm, and he thinks, why must I die? The elves do not die, the Valar do not die, only men are given what the ancient texts call the gift of Ilúvatar, an end, a departure from the circles of the world, and what had once been spoken of with quiet dignity, what the wisest among the Númenorians had called a grace, the freedom to leave, to go somewhere the elves could not follow, now began to feel, to the proud and the powerful, like a cage. They stopped calling it the gift. They began calling it the doom. And a people who once raised temples to the sky began building tombs, magnificent, elaborate tombs, as though the perfection of the stone that held their dead could somehow ward off the truth of what lay beneath it. They sailed east to Middle-earth, and where they had once traded, now they ruled. Where they had once offered knowledge, now they demanded tribute. The smell of salt air that once meant freedom began to carry something else, the iron scent of conquest. The Númenorians had become an empire, and empires in their hunger are never full. Something was wrong beneath the beauty. Something had been wrong for a long time. Now the world trembles. In Middle-earth, the shadow of Sauron, Morgoth's most devoted servant, the maker of the One Ring, the Lord of Mordor, stretches long and dark across the eastern lands. Men fall before him, kingdoms crumble, the darkness gathers. And then the fleet of Númenor appears on the horizon, 10,000 ships, the sun glinting off 10,000 bronze prows, the greatest mortal army ever assembled, sailing under the banner of Ar-Pharazôn, the mightiest king Númenor had ever crowned. And Sauron, standing upon the shore in his tower, looks out at those black and golden sails, stretching from horizon to horizon. And he makes a choice. He lays down his weapons. He walks out to meet them. He kneels. The Númenorians are triumphant. They load their prisoner in golden chains onto the greatest ship. They sail home to their paradise with Sauron bound in the hold. They believe they have won. They have not won. They have just lost everything. Because Sauron did not kneel out of defeat. He knelt out of patience. A man in chains can still speak. A prisoner with access to the king's ear is no prisoner at all. Slowly, over years, in whispered counsel and courtly flattery, Sauron does what no army could do. He reaches into the pride and the fear and the grief of the Númenorians, and he begins to turn them. From prisoner to advisor, from advisor to confidant, from confidant to architect of everything that follows. He told them the name of Morgoth in the dark, and they listened. This is how paradise becomes ash, not in a single night, not with fire dropped from heaven, slowly, step by step, each step feeling like the reasonable next one. First, Sauron poisons the politics, positioning his allies, isolating those who would warn the king. The old councillors are dismissed. The faithful, those Númenorians, who still remembered their friendship with the elves, still honoured the Valar, find themselves watched, then shunned, then hunted. Then comes the theology. Sauron teaches Ar-Pharazôn that Morgoth is not a fallen god. He is the true god. That the Valar are liars, that the blessed realm is not a gift, but a hoard, kept from men by divine jealousy. That mortality is not a grace, it is a punishment. And that the only power capable of defeating death worships darkness. And so in the centre of the city of Ar-Menellos, where once the white tree Nimloth had blossomed, bearing silver-white flowers, whose fragrance carried the memory of elvish starlight, a temple is raised to Morgoth. Black stone, enormous, its dome so vast that clouds gathered at its crown. Fires burn at its altar day and night, and the smoke rises so thick and so constant that the sky above the once golden city turns grey. The smell of pine and ocean is gone. Now the city smells of smoke and iron and fear. The white tree is cut down, the faithful are silenced, and at the temple's altar, men are sacrificed, offered to Morgoth in the hope that death, given willingly, might teach them to escape it. How did Atlantis become hell? This is how. There is a moment in the last years of Ar-Pharazôn's reign when even Sauron must have paused, because what the king proposed next was beyond even what Sauron had planned. Ar-Pharazôn, aged and furious and terrified of death, looks west across the water toward the blessed realm, toward the immortal shore, and declares, "I will take it by force." A fleet is built that beggars all description. Not 10,000 ships. More. The harbours of Númenor groan and splinter under the weight of vessels so massive they darken the water. Banners as black as the inside of a closed fist. The horizon is erased. There is only ship and sky and the west. Every soul watching from the shore knows, in the oldest and most honest chamber of their hearts, that this is wrong. That some doors do not open because they are meant to remain closed. That there are gifts in the world, and there are hoards, and the blessed realm is a gift. Not for the taking. But they sail, the ban of the Valar, the ancient prohibition forbidden mortal men from sailing into the west, is shattered beneath the prow of Ar-Pharazôn's flagship as though it were ice. And heaven watches. And heaven does not answer with warships. The Valar do something they have never done before. They lay down their authority over the world. They go to Eru Ilúvatar, the One, the Creator, the voice beneath all voices, the silence before the first word was ever spoken, and they ask him to judge. The answer comes not in thunder but in change. The world, which had been flat, which had been a disk beneath the stars, folds. The sea opens, not a wave, not a storm, a folding. The fleet of Ar-Pharazôn, 10,000 ships and more, is swallowed before it ever reaches the shore. Swallowed by water that falls upward into a crack in the sky. His soldiers drown in air, and then the water turns for home. The coasts of Númenor crack like old parchment. The harbours collapse into themselves. The great golden domes fold like flowers closing at midnight. The mountain, Meneltarma, the pillar of heaven, where 3 times a year the old kings had come to stand in silence before Eru, the mountain trembles. And then it is gone. Beneath colossal black waves that rise so tall they swallow the sky itself, Númenor descends. The white mountain, and the cut-down tree, and the dark temple, and the beautiful libraries, and the wide harbours, and the scent of the cedar gardens, and the bones of 10,000 years of history, all of it, gone in a single night. Sauron's physical form, the handsome golden-voiced deceiver who had counselled a king to war against the gods, is destroyed in the wave. He survives, he always survives, but never again will he walk the earth in a fair form. Never again will he appear beautiful. He has spent that. Whatever he wears from this moment forward will carry the mark of what he is. The greatest kingdom of men did not fall because it was weak. It fell because it believed it deserved eternity. But not all were lost. There were those, the faithful, the rememberers, the ones who kept the old ways, even when the old ways were punished, who saw the darkness gathering and built their ships in secret. A man named Elendil, his sons, Isildur and Anarion. They sailed east ahead of the wave, carrying seeds of the white tree, carrying the memory of what Númenor had been before it forgot itself. They came to Middle-earth. They built cities on the great river. They raised towers on the high places. They named their new kingdom after their grief, Gondor, the land of stone, because stone endures when paradise does not. And though Númenor lies in fathoms beneath the sea, its blood still runs through the veins of every king that follows. Its memory still shapes every tower built against the darkness. Because although Númenor drowned beneath the sea, its final survivors would shape the fate of Middle-earth forever